Welcome to the Ghostly Gallery podcast, a place where we explore the world of horror and mystery in film, television, literature, and in popular culture. Oh, greetings, everyone. Welcome to what is a milestone show for us. I'll explain that in a moment. My name is Bruce Marcus, and as always, I'm joined by producer and co-host Tracy Asteria. And as we welcome Tracy to the show, we do herald that this is actually our 100th episode. The critics said it wouldn't last 10 episodes. We've gone 10 times that long. 100. Hard to believe, Tracy, is it not?
I know. It is definitely a huge milestone. And here's to 100 more. You never know. Or 200 more.
Yeah, we've been doing this for a little over 2 years. We started out doing it every other week. Mm-hmm. And after a few months of that, we started getting into the rhythm of doing it once a week. And all of a sudden, we're at 100 episodes. And we wanted to do something a little bit special to celebrate this milestone episode. And we've assembled a panel of horror experts and historians. So joining us tonight, we have Edward G. Pettit, the Sunstein Senior Manager of Public Programs at the terrific Rosenbach Museum and Library in Philadelphia. He is the man who created the very popular online programs, Sundays with Dracula and Sundays with Frankenstein, and more recently, Mondays with Sherlock, an exploration of the many stories of the legendary detective. Our second panelist is Tucker Christine. And Tucker, who was one of our earliest guests, collector of Dracula-related memorabilia, generally one of the leading experts on Dracula, and also the creator of the excellent literary magazine Dracula Beyond Stoker, which features short stories and other literature inspired by Bram Stoker's work. Now, we had also hoped to have with us a third panelist, and that is author, actor, and historian Josh Hitchens. Unfortunately, Josh just notified that he's experienced a death in the family that prevents him from being with us tonight. We certainly extend our sympathies to Josh and his family. We're hoping to have him on soon. The reason I picked Josh and Tucker and Edward, because all three of these gentlemen played a major role in really motivating us to start this podcast. I was a listener of Sundays with Dracula back in 2020 during the pandemic, hosted by Ed Pettit. And that series featured guest hosting by both Josh Hitchens and Tucker Christine. And really, and this is completely honest, without the work of these three guys, I doubt I would ever have come up with the idea for this Ghostly Gallery podcast. So I owe a debt of gratitude to all three. And while we're sorry Josh can't be with us for this episode specifically, at least not tonight, we are happy that Ed and Tucker can join us. So I want to thank both of you for inspiring this and want to welcome you both back to the show. How you both doing?
Great. Thank you. It's congratulations on the 100th episode. That is absolutely fantastic. And as you know, this kind of work can't be done without great, people to talk to on it. And Tucker here and the others who were, and it was not only Josh Hitchens, it was Josh O'Neill, editor, publisher of Beehive Books in Philadelphia, and the Ghoul Guides, Mary Going and Lauren Nixon, who co-hosted as well. But Tucker, I met you. Well, I met you at the Rosenbach before then, but then we got to know each other doing the show.
Yeah, we got to know each other better doing the show. We met at a book event with Leslie Klinger first, and then I did 2 of your vampire courses.
Yeah,
and that's where we started getting to know each other. And then you contacted me about doing the Sundays with Dracula,
and I knew you had to be on that.
And I really appreciated he asked me to do the music, because that, to me,
that was tremendous.
That was the most fun.
Tucker has done all the music themes for all the Biblio Ventures since, Dracula, Frankenstein, Jane Eyre, Pride and Prejudice. He even did a Jane Austen theme for Pride and Prejudice that I did, and then the Sherlock Mondays, which and now it's Sherlock Monthly. That's still going on as a different show, but just monthly, and that one I love as well.
That's my favorite one too.
And the Jekyll and Hyde Christmas Carol that I did too. Did I miss any? Was that all of them?
I don't remember.
I think that's all. I don't know. How many shows? 100 episodes. Yeah. I've done like 200 now, so it's hard to remember.
The deadlines motivate me to finish, because I don't think I finished the song since you stopped asking for them.
And Tucker, so you come up with the music on your own, and I guess you try to shape the music to fit the theme, right? The subject.
Every once in a while, Ed accepts the first thing I send him, but for the most part, we go back and forth a couple times, and then come up with something he likes. Sometimes I convince him that he likes something.
One time I was like, I'm not sure. And you were like, is that a little too Frank Zappa? And I was like, yes, that's what it was. A little too Frank Zappa.
That was for the Christmas one. I remember that one.
But the Dracula, you were all over that. Like, and I almost feel like that music had already been in your head, and you had been making that already.
Well, I was working on, because it was the pandemic, we were doing nothing. So I was actually on my own for my own purposes, working on just doing covers of music from Dracula movies. So I was already in that mindset. So if you listen to the 30-second Sundays with Dracula song, that sounds very similar to the theme song from the Mark Gatiss Dracula.
Oh.
And the 2-minute one that you ended up using for the rest of the series after the first episode, that sounds very similar in style to some of the music from the Coppola movie.
We had 3, right? There was Storm at Whitby. Is that what we started with?
Storm at Whitby was the second one.
Okay.
The first one was 30 seconds, and you were using music to lead in for like the first 10 minutes before the show started, and 30 seconds was way too short.
Yeah.
So we went with the 2-minute one, which was Storm at Whitby. Then you did the Monday night show. I forget what you called that one.
Drac.
The Drac Chat. And I did one called Ritual in the Blood Room for that one.
That's it. Yeah.
Ritual in the Blood Room is my favorite one that I did for you.
Is it? Because then there was also Decay's Effacing Fingers.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too.
I thought that was their favorite, but yeah.
Well, so when I uploaded them to Spotify and Apple Music and all, I did them together. So I kind of consider them one unit.
Is that still available for people to go for?
Yes.
And that's under Pleated Gazelle, right?
Yeah, Pleated Gazelle.
Now, Ed, I didn't know about this Drac Chat on Monday nights. I never heard about that.
It was a special show. Well, the show was going so well. We were having so much fun. But what became evident with the Sundays with Dracula right away, and this has continued for all the BiblioVentures shows that I've done, is that the chat winds up being a whole other show going on at the same time. You experienced it. I mean, people just talking to each other, having all kinds of fun, to the point where I'm thinking like, well, you clearly can't be paying attention. You're just like talking to each other, but that's okay. It works because it's a chat. They're not interrupting me or anything like that. And everybody had so much fun doing that. And so a little past the midway point, I realized the chat was so much fun. I would love to really talk about the chat. So we made the chat. So I did a chat show about the chat.
Really?
That only members of the Rosenbach could watch. And we just did it once live. We didn't post those online anywhere. You had to be a member and watch it. And then what I did is I also chose somebody who was busy in the chat to be on with me, and the two of us talked, and I made all kinds of great friends who were also very much in the vampire and Dracula stuff, like Brian Forrest, who has been on your show in Toothpickings, and Lockie Heiss. I don't know if you've ever had Lockie, who's a great Nosferatu scholar, and really
not.
And just friends and people that I still meet with and talk to once a month in a vampire book club group we do online. So, so it was a fun show we did. And, but I don't know. I don't know if that's something we'll ever release. So
Yeah.
we'll see. Cause I was really able to just go free. Like I could curse. I could do anything I wanted. It didn't matter. It was a small select group. We were just watching on our own.
Now, I'm not part of the Vampire Book Club, but isn't that named after a 19th century book?
It's the Varney Club, and we read the Varney the Vampire, the gargantuan size, 1,500 page vampire serial that was written in the mid 19th century, and we read it serially. It took us about a year to get through it, and it was so much fun. We decided to continue that group, and we still meet once a month and read books and talk about them every month.
Very interesting.
Tucker's sometimes in it.
Sometimes, a lot less recently. I started a new job where I wake up very early in the morning, so it makes it hard for me to stay up late.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to talk a lot about classic horror. We're going to talk about modern day or contemporary horror as well. Let's begin with classic horror. You're obviously both huge fans of it. You love to talk about it. You know a lot about it. Ed, you're particularly an avid reader of horror from the 19th century and even earlier. Obviously, you've done the shows on Dracula and Frankenstein. You know those books inside out. You're also a huge fan of the classic mystery novels involving Sherlock Holmes. What is it about this literature that seems to keep so many of us still interested more than 125 years later?
It's the same thing with classic, horror movies too, that it is partly nostalgia. I mean, it's partly that, like this really cool thing from the past that looks really cool still. And some of that stuff, the literature and the movies were so groundbreaking when they were made, when they were written, that itself still registers, and later works are still kind of building off that, like anybody that makes any vampire story now, written or filmed, in some way, Dracula's behind that, like it kind of it answers, echoes. It might try to ignore it, but it's not going to, like, it can't be ignored in the audience. So things build off that. But the bigger thing about horror, though, is also what's going on, is that I think so many of the fears, the anxieties that people have that inspire horror, they still go on in different ways, of course, but they still go on. So I think people look back and they recognize these things still happening, just in slightly different ways. I mean, you look back at Frankenstein and this, the general thing that's usually attached to Frankenstein is kind of science gone wrong, and that clearly we recognize. But the other thing, the real thing that happens in that book is this kind of rejection of someone who you have created and the disastrous, tragic consequences that happen, that you create your own monsters in that. And of course, we still recognize that in the way people behave nowadays, and how, these things are still talking to us because we're still human beings.
Mm-hmm. Tucker, what's your perspective on Dracula? What specifically makes him the king of horror in your mind, even well over a century later?
To be honest, I think I said this on a previous show, I think it comes down to Lugosi. I think if it was not for Lugosi, we'd have no idea who Dracula is today.
Really?
I think he would have faded away. And then it would have been unfortunate, and same thing with Frankenstein. Without Karloff, we don't remember who Frankenstein is. They came at the right time. They were the right people to perform those roles, and they kept them going. They made them icons. Both those novels are great, but both of those novels are not what those performances are.
Yeah. Movies have taken over what to continue these kind of folkloric monsters. Tucker, what is it about Lego? Is it that charm that he had? What is it?
It's the it factor.
Yeah.
It's cliche, but that's exactly what it is. It is the it factor. And throughout the years, you see it pop up again. I'm going to use Dracula's as examples, but Lee had it, Claes Bang has it, Frank Langella had it, Gary Oldman has it. But then there's ones that fall through the cracks, like Gerard Butler didn't have it. Nobody cares. Gerard Butler was. I would go as far as
he's a really, really good looking Dracula. So good looking,
but he had the teeth to contend with, so you couldn't understand what he was saying.
Yeah.
Even though the Louis Jourdan movie is one of my favorite ones, I would go to say that he did not have it. I think that's a great movie, and he's okay in it. He's interesting, but he's not memorable unless you're a super fan.
But do you think old Gary Oldman though is just as memorable, especially for people that?
Absolutely. Especially the older version of Gary Oldman, but Gary Oldman through the whole thing. So when I do conventions and book festivals and stuff, I put up a sign and says, "Who is your favorite Dracula?" And the three top contenders every single time are Lugosi, Lee, and Oldman. Claes Bang is starting to make a showing finally, which is starting to make me happy.
Love Claes Bang.
But under 40, they are all saying Gary Oldman. Every one.
Wow.
Well, this is a question though, Bruce and Tracy, because you guys do this show and you've done 100 episodes. That's like as soon as I started thinking about this, I'm like, this is something I would love to hear from you because you've had 100 episodes to kind of think about and talk to people about these things. What keeps classic horror so relevant as I kind of take over your show and ask you questions?
Bruce, did you want to go first?
It's interesting with Lugosi because the movie itself, the Dracula from 1931, is really not that great.
No.
At least not the version I've seen. Now, some people say that there's a remastered version that's a lot better, and I still haven't seen that, and I should. But the 1931 film, it's choppy. It's not really that well edited. There's virtually no music. There's hardly any special effects. The one great thing is Lugosi. His performance does carry the movie. Without him, that film, to me, would not be a classic and might have even fallen flat in the time of the early 30s, even when people's expectations of what they were going to see at the theater was very different. But Lugosi was just so great in that role. And also in 1948 in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, in some ways, I think he was actually better in that because his command of English was better. But his performance so powerful that he really does carry that legacy forward. I think Tucker makes an interesting point. Stoker, great literature, and he ignited the flame, but Lugosi kept putting firewood on the fire and kept it going. That's kind of my feeling about it. I'm also, it's interesting that you get this reaction from fans who talk about Oldman. I mean, it's 30 years ago, but I consider that really modern era horror. Oldman's performance is pretty well remembered. And I've talked to some critics who hate the performance. I think in some ways it's funny, the crazy hairdo that he had, but it's also very creepy and very frightening. It's very effective. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 50 years from now, maybe Oldman's going to catch up to Lugosi. I don't know if that's possible. But I think you make an interesting point about how those actors, they're so good, so iconic in those roles that they do push forward Stoker's work into the future. What do you think, Tracy?
Yeah, I think that Lugosi is definitely Dracula. He'll always be Dracula to me. I don't think anybody can actually top that because he was kind of like my first experience with Dracula, and really my first experience with like classic horror. So it was Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff, and they were my first experiences. And I kind of, when we talk about classic horror, I always have to make the comparison to these guys,
Yeah.
and even Lon Chaney and Lon Chaney Jr. Yeah, they are classic horror to me. And I'm still, I don't want to say relatively new, but I'm still experiencing a lot of the classic horror films and horror stories from way back then. And it's there's just so many of them, and I'm enjoying them and getting recommendations from Bruce, and learning new things every day. But definitely, I think Karloff and Lugosi, they are true classic horror to me.
So I want to get the female perspective on this, because I've heard a lot of people say that they think Lugosi is very handsome and romantic. I don't necessarily think that. He was okay. You know, he was fairly good looking in his early years, but I don't think he's Cary Grant either. What do you think?
Well, I think it's just the mystique. And, you go back and you look at the old footage, you look at the old photographs that you see, and he just has that mysterious kind of, it's in the eyes. Like, it's absolutely in the eyes. It could be just like the stare, menacing, but just mysterious. And I think that part just makes it just that much better. And I guess that's why people would say, well, he was a very attractive vampire back in the day. And the accent too. Like, he may not have been like excellent with English at the very beginning, but the accent has a lot to do with it too. So
Yeah, that made him exotic. I mean, he comes out of
Yeah.
the Rudolph Valentino age, this like
right.
just slightly foreign looking with the exoticism that people liked, and he was really good looking. But tastes change over the years too for what's attractive. And I think Lugosi to people now still looks attractive, but people then thought he was super attractive. And that's also their beauty standards of the day.
But there's nothing as good looking as Gary Oldman with the heart-shaped hair, the slit in the middle. I mean, come on, you can't beat that.
I like this. It's interesting that because I'm a literature guy, so I go back to the books, but I completely recognize that it's movies that and I love movies, and I'm very much into those too, and very influential. I did movies before I did books. But this idea that it is the kind of iconic image of an actor that drives something, and which I agree with. But it's interesting with Karloff, because Karloff was also a great actor. I mean, he was a really tremendously good actor, and even in Frankenstein and what he did with it, with this kind of limited vocabulary. Well, no vocabulary in the first one, right? But the image isn't just Karloff. In this case, it's Jack Pierce doing the makeup. And so that early Frankenstein image isn't just due to Karloff's performance. It is due to the still astoundingly great makeup. We've seen so many films where we look back from the old days and like, well, people like took it for like, yes, I know that's just what they had to work with. But you look at Jack Pierce's makeups, and they are so perfectly good and realistic. That's part of it. The creation of that image too, right?
Yeah. Tracy has an interesting theoretical question coming up, but I want one follow-up question. I've heard for years that Universal Studios put a copyright on the Karloff look for Frankenstein, and they followed it up with Chaney and Lugosi and those other actors. Then I heard somebody say that copyright is expiring soon. Do either of you know if that's true?
I don't know that they did. I don't know if they could, but if they did, it will be expiring soon, because it's
it is and it is. It's and it's different with images and created works than it is with written works, and it's right, or is it just the same? It's just like
I'm pretty sure it's the same. IP copyright on IP expires after 95 years at this point.
Yeah, there you go. So anybody will be able to redo that, Karloff look that Jack Pierce look, and even though some people have done it anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that would be interesting if somebody really tries to create that using, I guess, modern makeup procedures and prosthetics, just to see how that would look. You never know. But Edward, I'm kind of curious. If you could travel back in time to the early days of horror, what specific era would you want to experience firsthand?
It's my first thought was like, boy, wouldn't I love to see these, 1930 Universal horrors, like for the first time. Like, but that would mean like I'd have to loot. Like, I can't just time travel. It's like I would have liked to have experienced that. But honestly, if I could, my answer is Lake Geneva, 1816. And I would Tucker like yes, like
I knew that.
How would I not choose to go to the Villa Diodati and hang out with Mary Shelley? Well, Ben Godwin, and Polidori and Byron and Percy Shelley, and listen. I mean, who doesn't want to hang out with Byron anyway? But to listen to the conversations that inspired Frankenstein, and that inspired. First Byron to start writing a vampire story, and then Polidori to kind of take that and adapt it into his own. I mean, I can't think of anything that would top the genesis of those of that happening. And on top of it, you get these great romantic poets and Mary Shelley, who was probably the most brilliant romantic of them all. And it would be storms on Lake Geneva. How could I beat that? I would probably lay off the laudanum they were taking, but
That would be a good idea.
They're all people I most certainly probably wouldn't like.
Oh,
yeah, I don't have to like you, but to hear you
just want to observe. You wouldn't want to interact.
I want to do a biblioventures with Byron and Mary and Percy and Polidori. That would be outstanding.
yes, it would. Tucker, what about you?
I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but I would want to see Lugosi on stage.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Because it's something. There was no recordings of it. We'll never see it ever.
Yeah.
The Dracula movie is the closest we're ever going to get, and that's a shame.
And that was late 1920s, right?
Yeah, 27, 28, somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there, yeah. And he did it on stage. I think it was 29 or 28, 29, and he was on Broadway doing it.
And also, if we're around that time, we can probably go overseas and see the Morel play. That is lost to time now.
Oh my gosh. What about you, Bruce?
I love the 60s. I was born in the 60s, but I don't really have any memories because I was born in 65. And probably my first memories are not till like 71 or 72. So I would love to go back to some of those AIP films from the 60s, Vincent Price and his collaborations with Roger Corman. I think that'd be kind of fun to experience that, see what the media was saying about it at the time. I mean, to some extent we can go back, but it's easier to do that in newspapers than with television, and day-to-day conversations that you might have with people. So I'm fascinated by what happened in the 1960s in a lot of ways, in baseball, in sports, but also with what went on in horror. I look back at the 60s and, color TV really started to become a major factor, both on television and in film. It was becoming a major factor with Hammer, AIP, really black and white horror started to come in that decade. So I think probably the 60s would be the time for me to go back to.
Oh, awesome. So many good times and so many good reasons. Oh, that's awesome.
I don't know if I would have fit in with hippie culture, growing my hair long, and I think I would have had trouble with that. I've always preferred the short hair, clean shaven look, but in terms of horror, let's go with the 60s.
Well, you just never know. Could be like a good opportunity to dress up for Halloween this year. Just you never know. And I just have another quick question for everybody, and maybe Tucker, we'll start with you. Since this is our 100th milestone episode, can you share one horror-related hidden gem that you think our listeners absolutely have to check out, whether it's film, book, your preference?
Well, I'm gonna give you two, just because
Okay.
I'm gonna give you one. I'm gonna give you two movies. One is actually really good, and the other one is I really like so bad is good movies. So I'm gonna give you a good one and a so bad is good, and they're both Dracula. So the good one is a German film from 1970 called Jonathan, and in this movie, Dracula he's clearly in style and character based on Hitler, and he leads like a German like death cult that has taken over society like fascists. And the humans, they choose Jonathan to be the one to infiltrate the fascist vampires and take them down. And it's bizarre, but it's really, really good. It's very difficult to find. It might be on YouTube at this point. I haven't checked recently. You can find it on like bootleg DVD sites and stuff like that, though.
Awesome.
The other one, the so bad it's good, is also difficult to find, but I know is on YouTube. Is called Son of Dracula with Ringo Starr and Harry Nilsson.
Wow.
And it is one of the worst movies you'll ever see at the same time that it's one of the best movies you'll ever see. It's so bizarre. And it's got all the great Harry Nilsson music in it. It's got like Without You is in the movie, you know. Ringo Starr plays Merlin the Magician in a Dracula movie.
As you think he would, right?
Yeah. But there's also a twist. I'm not going to give away the twist in case you want to watch it, but Merlin might not be who he says he is.
Oh my God.
Then Harry Nilsson as the son of Dracula. He is also a rock star and frequently goes out clubbing. So they have these musical sequences where you get to see him jamming with like Keith Moon and John Bonham's in one scene, and it's just awesome.
Yeah. It's called Son of Dracula?
Yeah, Son of Dracula.
So it's the same name as the Lon Chaney Jr.
His name is Lon Chaney one.
Not patterned after that in any way.
Not patterned at all.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, I proselytize this movie all the time in the hopes that we can get enough interest in it to, Ringo has put an embargo on it. He will not let it be released in any official format whatsoever. And I'm hoping we can get enough people interested in it where he'll lift that embargo and actually let it be released properly.
Well, not that I'm wishing it, but Ringo ain't going to live that much. So, you know, I mean, they're all in
also a
gravy.
rumor, and I don't know if this is true, that after it was finished, they were so upset with the finished product that they actually had Graham Chapman and somebody else go in and do like an overdub of it with comedy dialogue, just like kind of like Woody Allen style to make fun of it.
Wow, I've never heard of that one. I had no idea. Like Ringo Starr from the Beatles, Ringo Starr?
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh. Oh, wow.
Only one Ringo.
One and only. But yeah, if you,
Interesting.
like I said, I know for a fact that one's on YouTube. You can watch that. It's something.
Oh, interesting. What about you, Edward?
I have nothing that bizarre. You know, I thought of this in horror and I thought of this in literature. Or I'm sorry, film and literature. The Universal is known for the monster series, but what they're not known for is their Poe series. Everybody thinks of the Poe series. You think of the API, the Roger Corman Poe series, which are fabulous. But Universal did one in the 30s with Lugosi, and it is Murders in the Rue Morgue and The Raven and the Black Cat. Murders is kind of like some of that story is in it. The Raven and the Black Cat have nothing to do with the poem or the story. Like a black cat appears at one point in the Black Cat, but the Black Cat with Lugosi and Karloff, honest to God, it's one of the greatest horror films ever made. And it is a shame that film doesn't get lumped in with the great horrors that everybody knows, because it is astoundingly good. It's like an art horror film made in the 1930s, with two of the most recognizable horror stars at the time, and that one is just so worth it. The Black Cat, for people that haven't seen it, that is. And it's funny because among horror aficionados, it's like, that's not a hidden gem. Of course I've seen that lots of times, but that's not one that's popularly known. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Runners up would include Island of Lost Souls with Charles Lawton, which wasn't a Universal. I forget which studio did that. I can't remember, but in the 30s. But it's pre-code, so it's really outrageously racy, and really well done. And not that it's a hidden gem, but because when anybody lists their favorite Universal horror, it's never the one. The Mummy is actually my favorite Universal horror.
Really?
Nice.
I think the performance of Karloff in that is maybe the greatest performance he's ever given. I know that as a mummy, it's only in the beginning of the film, but his performance as Art of Bay through the rest of that is absolutely great, riveting. Like, I can't take my eyes off him in that. He's so still. It's unbelievable how well he does that role, and it's a great movie. For literature, a book that gets kind of, well, I say it's a hidden gem only because it's fairly new and not a lot of people know it, is that it is the Swedish Dracula, Powers of Darkness. I can't believe how much I loved it. Now, there was this thing called Powers of Darkness that came out a few years ago, this Icelandic version of Dracula they discovered that people thought was a translation, but actually wasn't. It was a full adaptation. Hans de Roos, this Dracula scholar, had put it out, and Dacre Stoker was involved with it. And it turns out, though, that was the tip of the iceberg, that Icelandic version was just an abridgment and a translation into Icelandic of a Swedish version of Dracula that is so crazy and interesting and fun that we don't know who, some anonymous translator, adapter, did for the serial in Swedish newspapers, that decided, I'm just going to rewrite this whole book however I want to rewrite it. And it's like secret societies and political anarchist organizations and like it's this like Satan worshiping ceremonies. It's like reading about a Hammer horror film that it's unbelievable, and it's in like the early 20th century, like 1901 or something, or earlier even. I'm not even sure I can't remember how early it came out. And it is so refreshing now when people see a new take on vampires or Dracula. It's so refreshing to see that this was done immediately. And it's so good. It's called Powers of Darkness, but you got to make sure you're getting the big Swedish version, not the short Icelandic one, because they're both titled that.
They're both worth a read, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I have two little ones too, because one of my favorite horror books is like a Satan worship voodoo book called Falling Angel by William Horsberg. Horsberg is Hortsberg. William Horsberg wrote this book called Falling Angel that was made into a movie called Johnny Handsome with Mickey Rourke. Is that what it was called? I think it was. No. It was Angel Heart. It's made in the movie Angel Heart.
Yeah.
Right.
Alan Parker made, which is a really, really good movie. But this book is so good. It's a PI novel married with a Satan stealing your soul, bargain with the devil, like all at the same thing, and it is fabulously good. And that would be a book that I think a lot of people know, Falling Angel. That's really good.
Well, those are all
interesting
titles. Go back to The Mummy, if you will, for just a moment. Is that connected to the Arthur Conan Doyle short story?
Yeah, it's is it the Ring of Thoth? Yeah, the Ring of Thoth, I think,
Okay.
or one of those Doyle. It's not lot 249. I think it's Ring of Thoth. It's Ring of Thoth. That is kind of they stole that, and that idea that happens now in all the Dracula versions, where Dracula meets his reincarnated lover and wants to reunite with her. They all got it from The Mummy, or that's just the kind of thing that people would come up with anyway, because it's not that unique of an idea that someone coming back from the past and the reincarnated lover thing it's not, I don't think it's that unusual for a creative person to come up with. But it's in The Mummy first. And then it's the Dan Curtis Dracula does it, the Coppola's Dracula, and now there's another Dracula coming out that I can't believe actually is going to exist, because it looks like a parody of Coppola, but it's not. It's what is it, Luc Besson?
Yeah, Luc Besson.
But everybody uses that reincarnation thing now. But it was The Mummy.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some more recent horror, and a film that certainly with ties to the silent era made quite the stir in December of last year and then into the early months of this year, and that's Nosferatu. Tucker, I haven't heard yet your thoughts on the film. I'm sure you've written about it. You probably posted it, and I've missed it. What did you think of the Robert Eggers movie?
I absolutely loved it. That's how I spent my Christmas Day, was watching that movie. My wife is not a horror fan, and it's not how she wanted to spend her Christmas Day, but she relented and agreed to do it with me, and she enjoyed it too.
Merry Christmas. Yeah, there you go.
If I told Ed, if I was going to make that movie, that's almost the exact cast I would have used. It was, I might have gone differently beforehand on with Lily Rose Depp, but after seeing Lily Rose Depp, she was great.
Yeah. Did you like right from the start? Because about 20 minutes in, I was hooked.
No, I was hooked from the start. I was hooked from the trailer, really.
Yeah. But Ed, what do you think of it?
It is odd how sometimes I feel like, Tucker's my, brother from another mother. Like, we exactly think the same things about something. I mean, I couldn't believe how good it was. Now, I've also loved all of Robert Eggers' films.
Yeah.
So I there's something about his sensibility, I think, that the way he makes a movie that really appeals to me. But I was so riveted every scene of Nosferatu, and they were long, drawn out, slow scenes, and they could have gone on. And I went with someone who didn't love it, and it was like, oh, it was too drawn out. I was like, are you kidding me? I could have done that for 4 hours. I could have watched that film. Like, I thought he hit such a pitch that I was so on the edge of my seat. I loved all the performances. I like the way he kind of redid Nosferatu. And I know it got some jokes, the mustache things. It works for me. Like, I think that he made the right decisions. I think he wasn't afraid to be, because he's Robert Eggers, he wasn't afraid to really push the envelope and to do things with the theme of that film and the look of it that people would be like, oh, that's gross. Like, he didn't, like, I'm doing it the way it should be done or the way he wants it to be done. And even Willem Dafoe, completely over the top. I loved every scene. I want to see a whole Willem Dafoe as that crazy character.
We
everything
had Hitchens on shortly after the movie came out. He also loved it. He raved about it. And one of the things that he pointed out was Skarsgård had to do these very kind of specialized or unusual voice lessons to get his voice that deep and drawn out. And I think it works.
Oh, yeah. And you know what Robert Eggers is making now? Have you heard this news?
I have.
Christmas Carol. Oh my God. This is like my dream come true.
Well, I think the werewolf movie's coming first.
Yes. And a werewolf movie. Yes. I love that. I love that stuff. But he's also doing Christmas Carol
with
Robert Eggers. Like, that is that's so bizarre and great. Like, I can't wait for that.
You think he's going to do it as a horror movie, like the Guy Pearce version?
It's definitely going to be scarier than normal. Yeah.
Wow.
So, hope it gets made. You know, they talk about these things and you hope they get made.
Well, there were so many false starts on Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we got a better movie because of the false starts, though.
Yeah.
Certainly another film that has created a big stir this spring is a movie that is maybe just as good. Some days I think it might be better than Nosferatu, and that is Sinners. Both Tracy and I loved it. I want to hear what you guys think. Let's start with Ed.
I really, really liked it. And one of the things I like the most about it is, and this happens with any new vampire movie, like unless you're just going to go like, I'm just doing a traditional, this is what it is. I love when they start kind of creating a new kind of lore or adding things to what makes a vampire significant. And this whole tie with music, I thought was brilliant and original. And of course, you know, as the Dracula scholar on me looks back at Stoker's original notes for his novel, and one of the things he had about Dracula, which he didn't include in the novel, was that Dracula has an insensibility to music. Like, he couldn't appreciate something artistic like that. And that's fascinating that he didn't use it. But this movie goes the opposite direction, and that takes that whole kind of, you know, inspiring spirituality thing of music that we get, and that thing that people talk about that you can't really, you know, put into the right words sometimes, of how important and inspiring music can be to you, and then makes that into part of this supernatural power. I really like that a lot about it.
What did you think, Tucker?
I also loved it. I really, really wish, though, that there had been a way that I could have seen it without knowing it was a vampire movie. If we could have got to that turn of like the 40-minute mark, and it's a complete surprise, that would have been the most wonderful experience.
Yeah.
And being that it was a Coogler movie, I would have gone anyway. If they would just market this as a Depression era movie, easy, I would have been there. You know. And I again, like, as I'm a musician, I love music.
Sure.
On my way out of the theater, I was on my iPhone buying both the score and the soundtrack, and for weeks, that's all I listened to was those two things.
Wow.
Are you a fan of jazz music in particular?
Absolutely, yeah. Not in particular, in addition to everything else.
Okay.
To me, I think it was Duke Ellington that once said there's only two kinds of music, good music and bad music. And I like that.
Another great thing about this movie, there's a lot of accurate history about these juke joints.
Yeah.
I remember a guy telling me many years ago that, I'm going to go off a bit of a tangent here. I used to be a caddy back when caddies were fashionable before golf carts, and it was my summer job. And I remember we had these really interesting but somewhat bizarre characters in the caddy yard with us. And one of them was a guy from the South, and he would talk about juke joints. And I thought he was making it up. These really existed, and that part of the story, that's American history right there.
When I was a kid, I went to school for audio engineering, and my dream at one point was to open a nightclub called Juke that looked like that.
I'd have been there. Definitely. I'd have been there drinking and dancing. Bruce, I can't help but think of you now as one of the kids in Caddyshack. So that's going to be my image of you now. The young Bruce in Caddyshack. I especially like this movie and the whole blues thing. I'm a big, blues, fan and have always been. And so that blues music tie to a people, the African Americans in the movie and the blues tradition, and even then going back to their roots in Africa, and that whole blues tradition in the movie is fabulous. So
you also had the Irish folk music was great too.
Oh yes, yeah, and that as well. So.
And there was so much world building in that movie that was just like you accept it. You accept that they're not going to explain everything to you. You accept it, and they could go and like we could get a whole movie about the Choctaw.
Yeah.
You know, tell me where'd they come from? Where'd they go? What were they doing? You know,
they're hunting vampires.
Yeah. Give me the backstory. You know, give me a whole, give me a
Really
really
love that part of the movie.
Was that?
There's a Choctaw Van Helsing out there, right? You know, in that movie.
Exactly. They should have put, like, I mean, I absolutely agree. You could do another movie just based on that. The whole entire movie, I was waiting for them to kind of reemerge, and they didn't, and I was disappointed. So
you could do a whole prequel that's not even a horror movie about what Smoke and Stack were doing in Chicago before they went back, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So if Ryan Coogler is listening, we want more.
Edward, given the success of these kinds of films, and there have been some other great ones that we both enjoyed, Tracy and I, Late Night with the Devil, Long Legs, there have been others in the last 2 or 3 years. Is it safe to say we're in a golden age of horror right now?
You know, I don't know. That's the kind of thing that I would ask Tucker, even in that, because I get to experience, so like I saw Nosferatu and I saw Sinners, but you know, I don't get to see a ton of new. I'm in the 19th century, you know, like I'm still trying to read, you know, like all the books that in the world that I haven't read up till, you know, in the past, but, and still catching up as we do, but the rest probably catching up on old movies that we have never seen. But, and even for kind of movies, I think there's a thing with what's nice now is that these movies and books are not seen as like a genre, you know, literature and movies are not seen as like, oh, that's just, you know, that other stuff. That like it's accepted as great work now by a lot of people. And not only just the public, but by, you know, critics, by, you know, by academics. And so that's nice to see. And that's something that's different now. And that I think will change what we in the future will see of this age, whatever this age is going to be and look like, that looking back on it, it's maybe the age where all this stuff got accepted as, and it's not just horror, it's other genres too, are now accepted as, you know, great works. But for horror in particular, even reading it, I read Dracula Beyond Stoker. Like that's the most contemporary stuff I read. and a couple authors that I know, like Gwendolyn Keist or Grady Hendrix or Jonathan Mayberry, because I know them. So it'd be like, I'd be a jerk if I wasn't reading their books. But outside of that, I don't get to experience it as much as I know Tucker does.
Yeah.
So on the
Golden Age, Bronze Age, what do we have here, Tucker?
So I live in a horror bubble. So to me, it's we've never left the golden age of horror.
Okay.
We have peaks and valleys of popularity for the mainstream, and I think we're in a peak right now. But every decade has a peak. You know, you go back, you got the Universal movies of the 30s, you got the Luton movies of the 40s, you got the AIPs of the 50s, the Hammers of the 60s. Then you move into the slashers and the grindhouse of the 70s and 80s, all the way up. And everything has something that's popular amongst the mainstream, but you also have the stuff that the horror nerds are watching too. And I'm one of those horror nerds. Like I said, it's been the golden age since the dawn of film. This is the dawn of literature for me. Yeah. But we do have some really great stuff happening right now, especially in literature. Literature, like Ed mentioned, you got Gwendolyn Keist and Jonathan Mayberry. You got Adam Caesar. Adam Caesar is really fantastic. Clay McLeod Chapman. I don't know if you guys read a lot, but Clay McLeod Chapman is amazing. But because I'm doing Dracula Beyond Stoker, I'm seeing a lot of these people. I'm at StokerCon every year, so I'm meeting them. I'm finding out who's new and upcoming, who's reaching the peak, who's at the top, who's winning the awards.
One new person in films and TV I watch is Mike Flanagan. And
Mike Flanagan is fantastic.
love all of that. And Jamie Flanagan, his brother. There's also a Dracula Beyond Stoker connection with Tucker could tell us about.
So Jamie has been in one of our issues. They did a story called The Solicitor. It was a Brides of Dracula story. And it's great. It's written as letters from the brides to Dracula when Jonathan is still in the castle. And it starts out with the first letter to Dracula, basically saying, regarding your solicitor, can we eat him? And that's the first letter. And it goes on from there.
So good.
It's really funny. It becomes really heartbreaking at the end, like any Flanagan story. And I was just at a convention where Jamie was there. And a bunch of actors from some of the Flaniverse shows were there. So we had Annabeth Gish and Matt Beidel and Robert Longstreet. They were there. And like spur of the moment thing, they came up with like 15 minutes of programming where they had dead space. So Jamie put together a reading of that story with the actors doing the reading the different letters. So you can catch that on YouTube if anybody's interested.
Yeah, Tracy's been telling me about Jamie Flanagan. Now, is Jamie younger than Mike?
I believe so. I don't know their ages. I don't know everybody between 35 and 60 is my age. So
that's what Wikipedia's for. Like, how old is somebody?
Yeah.
There you go.
And hasn't Jamie had some small parts in Mike's production?
In almost everything. And Jamie's also been in the writer's room for Jamie was also involved in a show on NBC Peacock called Hysteria, where they played the priest and also where it was in the writing room.
Yeah. How's Hysteria? I haven't seen that yet.
Hysteria is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's really great. They also just signed a 2-book deal with Simon Schuster. I believe it's Simon Schuster. There's a short story called Moira. Moira is about a little girl who is given a journal from her grandmothers who may or may not be witches. And she is told that she can only read the entry that is dated today. You don't read ahead. And when she gets it, she starts reading and it tells her everything's going to happen that day. So then she decides she's going to read ahead, and she reads ahead and she loses all the days that she read. So she learns her lesson and knows not to do that. But then she loses the book and somebody else starts reading it and she just starts losing time. Wow. And it's really, really great.
Oh my gosh.
So I definitely think we're in a golden era. I look at the last 10 years and I'll throw a few titles out there. I mentioned Late Night with the Devil, Long Legs, The Invisible Man remake with Elizabeth Moss. The Witch was another Robert Eggers production. I'm going to ask each of you to maybe pick a favorite. Either it doesn't have to be among those titles, but just maybe in the last 10 years, outside of Nosferatu, outside of Sinners, if there's one or two films that really have grabbed you in the last decade, what would they be? Let's start with Tucker.
I really love the X trilogy. Ty West's X, Pearl, and Maxine.
Okay.
I thought they were great. I thought they were great how it's a trilogy where every movie is a slightly different genre within horror. I thought that was really clever. I just watched one recently that it's a haunted house story, but it's questionable whether it's actually horror or not. But it's called Presence.
Oh, okay.
It's a Steven Soderbergh movie. It's a haunted house movie where the whole movie's in the POV of the ghost. And so if the ghost isn't seeing it, you're not seeing it, but the whole story is being put together by what the ghost is seeing. And it's really neat. The end is a little bit rushed, but it's still up until then, it's pretty great.
Are you a big fan of Mia Goth?
I am. I really love Mia Goth.
Yeah.
Her monologue in Pearl is, I think if that wasn't a horror movie, she would have been nominated for something.
Really? Edward, how about you? What really grabs you?
I wish I could watch all these. Like there's only so much time in the day when you're, reading Melville all day long to find to squeeze movies in.
Tim Wagner wrote novelizations so you could read them, Ed.
I love novelizations, and I kind of collect them in a sense. I've always wanted to read the novelization of Guillermo del Toro, the Gothic one. Why is the name out of my head all of a sudden? With the
I know what you're talking about. It's out of my head too.
And it doesn't matter. I like novelizations, and I have a bunch, and I read them sometimes. But clearly, I don't get to them all the time. All the Flanagan movies I love. The movies, and the Netflix series. Midnight Mass is my favorite Flanagan, thing that he's done. If not, and Nosferatu, I think is that good that it would rank. But maybe Get Out, Jordan Peele Get Out is just like, I just rewatched it again with family and who hadn't seen it, and it still worked for me, knowing the whole movie and what happens at the end. It still worked for me, and I thought that was a good sign that this is a great movie, that I can know how it finishes because it's important in that movie, and I could still really enjoy it. I thought that was a great film that is, it's not monster horror, like it's not supernatural horror, but it's still horror. That's a horror movie, clearly. And I liked it more than the rest of the Jordan Peele stuff. Like, and I know people still love all the Jordan Peele movies, but it was really that one that it was only the first one that I really loved.
I really like the actress in that, Allison Williams. She's the daughter of the former NBC nightly news anchor Brian Williams.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
She's first, I mean, she's beautiful, but she's, I think, also a very good actress.
Got good genes. Yeah.
Very good in that film because she really plays a two-faced character that major reveal midway through.
Don't tell people that. They haven't seen it yet.
Well, I didn't give them the specifics.
She turns into somebody even better.
Yeah. Yeah. I was kind of hoping that movie might win an Academy Award. I think it was nominated, if I'm not mistaken. But
they expanded the category and to like 10 films now, but that's only because now they just can say, oh, these films count. Now the Academy still has not recognized genre, right? Like very few genre films can win Academy Awards. They can be recognized as nominees, but no, I shouldn't say that because what's that movie a couple years ago? Parasite. So yeah, so maybe that's a turning point that now they're just like, yeah. So if you make this kind of stuff, we will. Because it used to be, what was it? It was like, two actors had won for horror for Oscars, and it was Frederick March for Jekyll and Hyde back in like the 1930s, and then it was Anthony Hopkins for Silence of the Lambs, and no other horror actor had ever been recognized like that. But the films, is Parasite the first horror film to win?
Well, if you count Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, and Silence. Yeah, Silence won, and then that. So that's it. Yeah. So maybe maybe that's a change. As I was saying earlier, that this stuff's being recognized more now.
I didn't think tried to tell me Silence of the Lambs is not a horror film. I don't agree at all. I think it is.
Serial killers are monsters, right? They're Michael Myers without being supernatural, right? So that's still a monster. So
it can be a horror movie. I don't know that I would consider it a horror movie.
You can make a serial killer film that is kind of a mystery thriller that's not necessarily horror, but I think Silence is a horror. Like that one I think crosses over.
I think it does skirt lines, but I know a lot of people who don't like horror that love that movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think when you bite another guy's face, that's horror.
I have to agree, Bruce. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm curious, just because Tucker, Edward, you're both into kind of like the horror fandom. You deal with horror fans both through reading groups, your horror magazine. So I'm curious, how do you think that fan engagement, like podcasts, social media, online reading groups, how do you think those things have changed the way that we talk about horror today? And maybe Tucker, we'll start with you.
I think I'm going to separate them out because I think social media is different than the podcasts. I think the podcasts are better. I think what's happening is, for me at least personally, they're replacing what magazines used to be in my life. I mean, I still subscribe to Fangoria. I still pick up Rue Morgue whenever I see it on the stands. But when I get those things, it could be a couple days or a couple weeks before I even get to them. I have them, but I don't get to them for a couple weeks. Whereas every week I'm listening to you guys. I'm listening to Talking Scared. I'm listening to the Ghoul Guide Association. You know, I'm listening to all these shows and getting their perspectives on the things, because as much as I'm in, like I said, I'm in a horror bubble. That bubble exists at the conventions, and it exists sporadically. There's nobody in my direct life that's into it the way I am. So that gives me the engagement that I'm looking for. And the social media is terrible because everybody's a hater. You know? Yeah. I mean, there are people that love the stuff, and they're the people writing the articles on there. But then you go into the comments, and everybody hates either the movie that's being talked about or the person that wrote the article about the movie that's being talked about. You try to avoid that as much as you can. But the podcasts are awesome because it's people that love what you love. I like listening to your guys because I know you and I've spoken to you. I sometimes find myself trying to join the conversation in ways that I don't with other podcasts.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so cool. You should like always like message us and say, "Hey, I'd love to come talk about this," and we will make space.
Do an after show.
Yeah.
I would definitely jump in those too. Like, oh yeah. Oh, you guys talked about this, but I was thinking blah blah blah. Like, yes, the talk to never end.
We should do a live show like Edward does. Your shows air live.
Great. I only do live. Yeah. You know why I do only live? Because then there's no post-production, man. It's just this is it. My work is done. Hear you. when it ends.
When we were doing Sundays, I would have to hide the chat because I would get engrossed in it and stop paying attention.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Edward, what about you?
Well, you know, what's great is that there's so much content now, and there's so much really well curated content out there that it's not that, even though podcasts are completely independent, people can do whatever they want, and as long as they want to talk about whatever they want, and that should be anarchy. And it's really not, because people have learned to curate well, and the platforms that you get and you can find things on, and then the way other people curate them for you is so that there's so much content. You know, talking about magazines. You know, I was a kid that bought Famous Monsters magazine, you know, as a kid. I remember telling my dad that, like, oh, like, I got an allowance. I was in that age where kids got an allowance. I'm certain that doesn't exist anymore. That, like, I got a certain amount of money every month. And I remember I took my allowance. I think it was $2.50. And I went to the store and bought Famous Monsters, and I brought it home to my dad. And I was like, yo, look what I got. I used my allowance on this. And my dad was horrified. Like, what? This is what you're wasting your money on? And my dad was like understanding and nice too. And he even still had this reaction. And that was all we had. You only had, you know, a few, you know, magazines and whatever content you can find. And as, you know, I think first it was talk radio, and then which, you know, started to focus in on more different kind of groups to talk about things. But now with podcasts, well, first of all, there's so many that I can't, like I wish I could, you know, listen to everything that's out there that I would be interested in, and I can't. And so I don't know in what ways, in a sense, it's just that it has to have changed the way people now encounter this stuff, especially, you know, younger people coming up into it, that can learn so much and have the ability to experience so much that in the past we didn't have. You know, that, you know, with what you guys do and with others, that man, I mean, yeah, Tucker knows too. Like, yeah, when you were 16, like, didn't you wish, like, oh my God, I wish I could have had all of this out there to you know, listen to and watch and engage with, you know? And it's that engagement. That's, you know why? Because I do the Biblioventure show, and this is what we're all about. Like, that's like my key word is engagement. I want to engage with people and have them react to it. And react with each other, create these communities of groups, and with fandom, as you mentioned, Tracy, becoming so strong now, that, you know, to create more avenues for people to meet up with each other and join these and become part of these communities is really important. I'm a reader. I could spend 90% of my time reading a book, and like, but that's any social behavior, and that's not good for people. You need to be able to have relationships and enjoy things like that with others, and that really happens now. But I think that the root of this question is, how has it changed? Or well, that we can see how it's changed, but I just don't know, like, we don't know what that is in the future, like, because it has changed like this. What is horror or anything else going to be like because of this deep involvement we all get? I think it's better. I think it should be better, but you know, I don't know. That's for the future to find out.
That's a good answer. Yeah, it's definitely, I find there's a lot of engagement, and, you know, even like conventions. I think it's such a great idea just for the horror fans to kind of get together. I've only been to one convention in my life, and it was a sci-fi convention, but it was such a moving experience. So I really like it. I think it's you're right. There's so many different podcasts and just so many other things that people can kind of grab onto, but it's so cool to hear other people's perspectives and kind of like their likes and their dislikes. And then it just kind of helps introduce people like myself to things I've never seen or things I've never heard of before. And, you know, I discover new things every day. So I think it's pretty darn cool. Like, I'm enjoying it for sure.
Yeah. And then it can just go on. You know, I think like a turning point I remember was when Walking Dead was at the height of its popularity. And then suddenly they were like, let's have a show called Talking Dead. And people come on and just talk about the episode that you literally just finished watching. And like, that couldn't have existed, you know, 20 years before that show. Like, people would have been like, what? That doesn't, what? No, I'm going to read the review in the paper the next day. And, you know, like, but now we can react simultaneously, and that's gotta be good.
Yeah.
I think that might have been the first television post-game show for horror.
Yeah, a sport. Yeah. I guess sports had already done it, right? And it's that model, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he did everything but, you know, bring the actors out after the last scene in full costume.
Well, yeah, but sometimes they did it. They had the actors there anyway. It was filmed previously, clearly. So yeah. Is sports the model for that? I wonder. That's interesting.
That's what it reminded me of when I saw it. But I'll tell you, the thing that I liked about your show and Tucker and Josh and all the other people contributing to it, I tried listening to other horror podcasts earlier. I'm not saying that they were bad, but for me, they were somewhat superficial. You were really the first guys I listened to that got in depth on classic horror. And that's what I really liked about it. And I said, I'd like to do something like that. Maybe not just classic horror, but also contemporary horror as well. And maybe looking at some of my favorite shows from the 60s and 70s and favorite movies. But that's what really grabbed me about the Sundays with Dracula, Sundays with Frankenstein, the Mondays with Sherlock, the in-depth discussions that you would get into and still get into now.
That's interesting. That's interesting to hear because, and yes, I always wanted to be very in with Dracula. It was one chapter. We showed notes for everyone, and we were like, I was always focused on that. But I always thought the key was the personal thing, that like we were all personally talking about stuff, and that's, you know, the host that I chose, and I think that works with you guys exceptionally well too. And I think people are not afraid. I think, and podcasts I listen to, people are not afraid to, like, I might not be an expert. It doesn't matter. Like, I might not have credentials to do this kind of thing. It doesn't matter. I'm doing this kind of personal thing that if it's interesting, it works. But what we get is really at root people's, you know, selves into this stuff.
Yeah.
That did not used to happen in kind of critical commentary fields.
Oh yeah. I mean, it definitely feels like a community with all the people in the chat, and, you know, you've got sometimes multiple hosts. There's definitely a community feel that you get with your show that doesn't always happen with other podcasts. Guys, earlier we talked about favorite horror films or films that grabbed you of the last 10 years. I'm curious about maybe favorite horror actor or actresses from today. Probably my favorite horror performer today is Vera Farmiga, who was great in Bates Motel. She's also done wonderful work in The Conjuring. She can do other things, but I think she's really made a tremendous stamp in horror. I'm curious if you guys have a favorite. Let's begin. Tucker, anybody that among the actors and actresses today in the genre? I mean, they could do other things too, but they're really good in horror, really gotten your attention.
Well, we already discussed Mia Goth. I think Mia Goth is great, and I think she's going to get even better. And Skarsgård, Bill Skarsgård. I mean, he's the new icon, you know. he's the new Robert Englund. He's the new, going back to Carl. He's the new Karloff, you know.
Yeah.
Did you see Skarsgård in a show he did about 10 years ago? It was about werewolves.
Yes.
What was that called?
It was
Hemlock Grove.
Hemlock Grove. It was a vampire and a werewolf.
Right.
And, Skarsgård was the werewolf, right?
I think the other guy was a werewolf.
I forget
what Skarsgård.
Who was who. That was like one of the very first Netflix shows, like the ones made for Netflix. And there was also like a girl that was like a Frankenstein monster, and her name was Shelley. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember a whole lot about the show, but I did watch it. That was a while ago.
Yeah. But he that's where he first got my attention.
Yeah. And then he was obviously he's Pennywise. He was in Castle Rock for a little bit. He was the stranger in Castle Rock.
Yeah.
Doing like with a link also to Pennywise, in a sense, is the way that was. Yeah.
A Barbarian. He was in Barbarian.
I love Barbarian. Love Barbarian.
I have not seen that one.
Oh, tonight. For you. As if you haven't had a long enough day, Bruce. Tonight, watch Barbarian. I so loved it.
All right. What actor or actress do you really like today, Edward?
Well, Bill Skarsgård could do no wrong, right? It's like he seems to be at that thing where he can do these things, and with Tucker said, like Karloff. He's like a modern Karloff suddenly, but today is different. Actors don't do things like Karloff and Lugosi then, where they were stuck in only doing horror. You know, like they can expand, and Skarsgård does. He's got a career where he's done plenty of things that aren't horror already, and will continue to do. And so, you know, he can do that kind of stuff. But as I mentioned, I don't get to watch enough to really, I think, like Mia Goth. I don't think I've seen Mia Goth yet. But I know the name, and I know that, you know, that things that, you know, she's been in are great, but I just don't get to see them that much. Skarsgård's the one that I almost like because I saw a couple early, then it's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna watch everything he's in now. And it's all, as soon as he seem to be in, you know, Robert Eggers movies, of course I'll see them. Or who did it? Whoever made it as well. but that question makes me think, like, because like there were horror stars in the past. I don't know if they're horror stars anymore. Like even in the 80s, there were scream queens and things, and the people that did horror films. I'm not. I think actors avoid that kind of thing now to make sure that they're not stamped in a genre. So to have another Karloff Lugosi, I don't know if that'll happen. Even Vincent Price, who is considered a horror icon, but made tons of things
Sure.
up until he got stamped with it, and then most of his career was just horror, in the 60s and 70s. But you can watch, Price in the 50s and 40s and lots of different films. So I just don't know if I think if somebody becomes like that kind of horror icon now, it means they kind of got stuck in only doing that. Like then that directors wouldn't look for them to do other kinds of work. And I don't think any actor wants that ever. Nobody wants to be typecast into a genre. So I think that'll be harder for that to happen for people. Maybe Bruce Campbell got kind of, into that because he was so much fun in the
Evil Dead.
The Evil Dead movies and Army of Darkness, and then he did Ash, and that whole Ash character became that, and he got to do that. He's done other things. He even did a Hallmark romance movie that I actually watched because he's in it. And it was actually not terrible, but I also watch Hallmark movies. So there you go. That says a lot about me. But it's rare for actors to get stuck in that now, like 21st century. They're literally making sure that they don't get typecast as a horror person.
Right.
So like Mia Goth might be great, who I haven't seen yet, but I bet you she is looking for other roles and making sure that she can do other kinds of things so she doesn't become a scream queen. Not that she is, because I don't know, but like the scream queens didn't want to be scream queens, and would it take Jamie Lee Curtis until now to be recognized, as an actor, because nobody ever really recognized her as an actor. I think because she started with Halloween, and now she won the Oscar for everything. What's the name of that title?
Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. Now that she's finally been able to, be recognized for that. But before that, even though she had done other films, she was a scream queen. That's what she was. Even though she didn't scream in any of her films, I don't think.
Tracy, how about you? Who's your favorite?
Oh my gosh, there are so many. I really like Bill Skarsgård. I find that whole family is actually quite talented. His brother, Alex, was in a wonderful, quirky horror type film called Hidden. It's like a post-apocalyptic type film, which was excellent if you haven't seen it. And I'm such a fan of like the actors and actresses that Mike Flanagan pulls from. They're just so talented. The actor, and his name escapes me, the one that plays the priest in Midnight Mass, superb. Oh, they're all amazing, and even his wife is just super amazing too. There's
Katie Siegel,
yeah. There's so many, and I'm such a huge fan of all of them. But I think you're right too about like the typecasting. I think a lot of talent would be a little bit afraid to be typecast in just like a horror genre type thing. So, I'm just in awe of the talent that's out on the market today. And, it just gets better and better. That's hard to pick one favorite.
Tracy, I know you had a couple questions you wanted to ask these gentlemen.
Yeah. So, Edward, you actually touched on this right at the very beginning of the show. You were talking about kind of how horror, the genre, reflects the anxieties of the time. What is your best guess? What do you think the next kind of anxiety will be that horror filmmakers might kind of latch on to and make it the next great paranoia?
That's such a great question, but it's like, it's so hard to answer because we're in the midst of our fears and anxieties, right? Like the fears and anxieties we have are there. So then it winds up being a personal thing. And it's like, I don't know, is it because the world is going to come to an end because like we're destroying it, or it kind of, it's easier to answer those questions in hindsight because then you can see the patterns that happen, and it's harder to pick out patterns when you're in the midst of it all, like it's a forest, and it's the forest of your anxieties and fears, and which particular, genus of tree or plant is the actual, thing that is suddenly also in other people's forests. And you could see it in the past, the way it's happened. But it's really hard now. And I think you'd have to carefully watch everything over the course of the last, say, like 10 years to say, like, look, here's a pattern. I see this thing happening. And I haven't done that. But the next wave, yeah, I'd like, I don't know. Is it tyranny again? Political tyranny, like is becoming this thing that is this otherness, this people not being accepted. It's so hard to pinpoint which thing would be. And even if I watched everything and I thought I saw a pattern, that might not be the pattern that people that really is there, and that people in the future can look back on and see, like we can do in these other eras of horror, and see which fears and anxieties. I gave you no answer and took long to give you no answer.
But it's a good one.
You can tell I talk for a living. Right?
What about you, Tucker?
I don't think Ed's wrong there. And I don't think artists know what they're talking about when they're making their art. Like Stoker didn't know he was making a novel about immigration and otherness when he did Dracula. He was writing a vampire story, but his mind was on that in the other aspects of his life, and it worked his way in. Ed, even though he didn't give an answer, he touched on aspects of what I would have said. I would have said fascism rather than tyranny, but same thing. And fascism and otherness, I think, are going to be the fears that show up in when we look back.
Then if that's the case, we should see another great Universal horror, not the Universal, because they're not interested in doing the films like they used to do. We should see that kind of great thing happening. Oh, that would be great, wouldn't it?
I think there's lots of good horror to come. And I have one last question. Are there any upcoming horror films or even books that you guys are really, chomping at the bit to see or to read?
Well, horror film? Yeah, Del Toro's Frankenstein, goddammit. Like, please come out tomorrow. I am waiting for Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. That's something Guillermo del Toro has been waiting for his whole life, too.
That's right.
Like, that is coming out at some point. And also Maggie Gyllenhaal has made a film, The Bride, from The Bride with Christian Bale as the Frankenstein creature. But I don't know I can't remember the name, the actor doing The Bride in it. But those, and that Frankenstein thing, I think that'll have a moment by the end of this year that we'll see some more. We'll see a lot of Frankenstein love out there because of those things coming out.
That's right. That's coming out in October, I believe.
I don't think they have a date for Del Toro.
Okay.
But I'm not sure about The Bride. But also, is Abraham's Boys out yet?
That was going to be my answer. Was Abraham's Boys.
Then you, Tucker.
That actually came out in limited release like 2 weeks ago, and I was busy the weekend it came out, and in my local theater it was there for one weekend, and that was it. So I currently have it pre-ordered on Apple TV, so I'll have it as soon as it's streaming.
What's that one about?
So that is a Dracula story written by Joe Hill. if it's in, you can find it in his 20th Century Ghosts book, and it was also in an anthology called The Many Faces of Van Helsing, which is where it came up first. It is essentially like Van Helsing put into the movie Frailty. Have you ever seen the movie Frailty with Bill Paxton?
Yeah, Bill Paxton. That's
So
great.
it's kind of like he is raising his children to be monster hunters as well, but they've never seen any proof that there are real monsters. So the one son is a true believer, and to the other son, he's just a psychopath, an abusive father and a psychopath.
And they're in America, right? Like Van
They're in
Helsing
America,
came to America and raised a family, and there you go. Oh yeah, and it's Titus Welliver, right? As Van Helsing. Oh, Titus Welliver is awesome.
Yeah. Oh, he's great in Bosch, which just wrapped up. Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that one. I wish I had already seen it, but I thought I would have more time.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I'll
geez.
have
What
to have
about
you
you,
on again to
Bruce?
talk about that one.
And as far as books go, there is a new Gwendolyn Kleist collection coming out. I think sometime early next year. Sometime
really?
like just in January, February, maybe.
Yeah. And Gwendolyn was one of the winners of the Rondo Hatton Awards.
What's that?
Gwendolyn won Rondo Hatton Award this year.
She also just won a Stoker for
Stoker.
Yeah, for achievement in a novel.
Yeah.
For not Reluctant Immortals, Haunting of Elkwood.
Yes.
Which,
yeah, we had her on to talk about that.
Haunting of Elkwood was great.
Yeah, that's done really well.
She was a special guest on Sundays with Dracula. People want to go up and look up an old episode of Sundays with Dracula on YouTube and the Rosenbach's YouTube channel. Gwendolyn Kleist was on the episode. It was very Lucy centered, that episode.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the exact chapter, but yeah, it was good.
It all comes back to your show, right?
For me, it does.
Yeah. Guys, as we get set to wrap up this special 100th episode, let's get updates from both of you on the latest projects. We'll start with you, Tucker. When is your next issue of Dracula Beyond Stoker coming out, and what's the theme going to be?
The next issue will be out in November. Hopefully, we got more submissions this time than ever before, so it might take me a little longer, but I'm working hard to get it for November. And it'll be Mina. It's all Mina stories. The Jonathan one just came out in May, and that's always about. They're all still available.
Yeah.
I also have a bunch of secret projects I can't talk about. We can talk about off the air if you'd like.
Okay. Now, if people want to subscribe and get the magazine on a regular basis, can they do that, or do they need to get individual issues?
I don't have a subscription service. I haven't figured out the logistics for making that happen efficiently. But yeah, you can go to dbspress.com and order issues individually. If you're not in America, you can get them on Amazon.
dbspress.com. And I'll tell you, for what you get, you're not paying that much. You could easily raise your prices, Tucker.
Yeah, I could. I probably
But it's a great deal and certainly comes highly recommended from us. So that's dbspress.com for those issues of Dracula Beyond Stoker. And it looks like the next one coming out in November. And Edward, how about you? What is your next online biblioventure going to be?
My Sherlock monthly biblioventure comes back in September, September 2025, depending on when people are listening or watching this. But I've got nothing on the horror beat right now. I did Jekyll and Hyde last year on biblioventures, and we're for the first time in a while, we're not starting a new biblioventures this fall. We're not going to start it until January. To give me time to do other work for the Rosenbach. We do a lot of online courses, which are absolutely fabulous, and people should check out the Rosenbach for the online courses we do. We have a Lord of the Rings course starting very soon with Michael Drout, who is a very, very well established Tolkien scholar doing that. But next biblioventures won't start until January, and it's not horror. But you could say there's a monster in it, and that's all I can I can't tip that hat now. I won't announce it until September. But I still do Biblioventures with the Rosenbach, and those shows are free for people to watch on the Rosenbach's YouTube channel. They're always live, and I drink and I smoke and talk about great books chapter by chapter, and they're a lot of fun. I will be going to Edinburgh for 2 weeks in October. And I will be seeing as much Robert Louis Stevenson stuff as I can in Edinburgh, because I love Robert Louis Stevenson, and I'll be doing a lot. And there's also, I discovered, because my daughter was in Edinburgh a couple summers ago, there's a fun Frankenstein themed bar in Edinburgh that like has all this stuff inside, and and I can't wait to visit that when I'm in.
That's good to know, because I'm going to Edinburgh next August. So.
Yeah, wow. I wish we could have lined it up together. Yeah. Biblioventures Sherlock Monthly in September, and even more. If you go to the rosenbach.org, you can always see what I'm doing with the Rosenbach.
Well, I've gotten into Sherlock partly because of you, but also because a friend of ours, Richie Coster, is in the new TV show Watson, which is sort of a modern day derivation. The Sherlock character is deceased by this point, so Watson becomes the central point, and Richie plays his sort of assistant, former henchman, who's sort of on the straight and narrow now. I don't know if you've watched Watson, but do you like it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Good.
And Sherlock, and for Sherlock stories, there is a great Sherlock Gothic kind of, monster story, in a sense, The Hound of the Baskervilles, in which I did a subscription only series for 8 episodes where you had to pay for it to watch it.
Right.
And that is actually we're going to release that actually for everyone to watch for free in September. I'm calling it Release the Hound. And The Hound of the Baskervilles Sherlock will be available from the Rosenbach in September.
Great news to hear. Our sincere thanks to both of our guests, Edward G. Pettit of the Rosenbach Museum and Library, and Tucker Christine, the creator of the wonderful literary magazine, Dracula Beyond Stoker. Again, our thoughts with Josh Hitchens, who originally was going to be part of the program, but has had some family emergency come up, and unfortunately could not be with us tonight. But we wish the best to Tucker, to Josh, and hope that we'll be able to have him on the program soon again, because he's always a great contributor. But thank you, both of you, for being with us. It's been a lot of fun over this last hour and a half.
The last of my drink tonight. Cheers to Ghostly Gallery, Tracy and Bruce. You guys did a great show, and you went long tonight because I love long shows.
Right.
Thank you for going long.
Yeah. What's the nickname that you have for a long show? It's something to do with your pipe smoking, a 2-pipe program.
Yeah, it could be. Yes. So there were shows that were 2 pipes, and because I talk so much, I can usually only get 1 pipe in a show. But if I talk, but if I go through 2 pipes, I know the show was really long.
So I told my wife that we would finish an episode of a show we were watching when I got done here. And she said, are you sure you're going to have time? I said, oh yeah. They usually keep it tight. And she goes, yeah. You said Ed's on it, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, here's a motivation for you, Ed. Next series of Sherlock Monthly, let's see if you can go for a 3-pipe show.
Oh, yes. I would love that. Yeah. Well, now they're monthly. They go actually longer.
Okay.
Like 2.5 hours, some of them. Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. It's been a lot of fun. And, of course, thanks, Tracy, also for contributing as our co-host and producer. Appreciate all of you.
You guys are great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We thank all of our listeners as well. We're very happy that you could join us in this Museum of the Macabre. And we do hope we'll see you again next time right here in the Ghostly Gallery.